Shabbat Shalom. Nothing drives me wild quite like looking through kids' books on Bible stories. It is just an exercise in frustration, even worse than watching the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston, or Prince of Egypt, which also I have trouble with. The kids' books just, One pet peeve is the depiction of our avot, the various patriarchs throughout history. Take, for example, Avraham Avinu. In the picture books, you see Abraham sitting there by his little tent with his little sheep, and he's kind of this old-looking guy, and he doesn't look very strong. He's a little frail, and it's just him and Sarah, maybe a couple people in the background. Does that match Abraham in the Torah? No, Abraham was manly. And Abraham was buff. This is a guy who led people into battle against 5 kings and won. This is a guy who was able to start with a small amount that he had when he came down from Haran and build it into such a cowboy empire, or sheep boy empire, that sounds totally wrong, that he had to split. Right? His stock had to split, quite literally, between himself and his nephew Lot, because there wasn't enough room for all of their flocks. This is a man that was a real estate mogul. Right? He was buying territory to have a place to bury not only his wife, but himself and his descendants. He was laying things out. This is somebody that was a man's man. Right? Man's man? You don't think of Abraham as being manly? No? This is not the epitome of macho? Not a relevant topic. Well, I'm going to make it relevant, which is to say that there is a movement among others to try and make exactly that point, that we should look upon our biblical heroes as being the men they were. And of course, from that, learn what it is to be a man now. And what I just described is sort of the normal, run-of-the-mill envisioning of the man's man that Abraham was. But there are a few holes in the story, aren't there? If we're going to hold up Abraham as being the epitome of macho, as being the real estate man, as being the warrior man, as being the one who would trek over hill and dale man, as being the wealthy entrepreneur in the sheep business man, aren't there also some counterpoints to that kind of narrative? Yeah, he tries to kill one of his kids and only stops in the last minute. He sends away one of his other kids with his mother, the kid's mother. Why? Because his wife told him to, right? What kind of whipped, henpecked man was he? And what happened twice when he was in dangerous territory? Did he go all Rambo in defense of his wife? No, he lied and said it was his sister and tried to pass it off so that he wouldn't be in danger, even though that meant she was put into danger by sexual predators in those communities. I'm sorry, is this the macho man image that we're looking for here? All right, let's leave Abraham behind. I mean, after all, he was only at the very beginning. Let's take someone that is incontrovertibly the man's man, or at least in the telling that people like to make. David HaMelech, King David. Oh, come on. This is a man who, while a child, was doing the kind of things that you tell in stories about Heracles. Right? He was killing a lion when he was but a boy to defend the flock. That's pretty good for the macho side, right? This is a man who was able to stride out and take down the biggest giant Goliath and show that he was able to have that. The people would chant. What did they chant about David and Saul? Saul has killed his thousands. David has killed his tens of thousands. In order to win the hand of Saul's daughter in marriage, what did he do? He goes and he fights 1,000 Philistines and brings back their foreskins to show his bravery and to make it a engagement present. Yeah, never complain about whatever you got for your engagement. He goes on, of course, to become king and to lead Israel into its greatest period of prosperity and eventually setting the world up for the peace that comes in the early days of Solomon's empire. Surely, this is a man, not to mention all of the wives and concubines. Right? Any counter-narrative here? Okay, when he gets really old, they didn't have assisted living facilities and electric heating pads. And so they bring in Abishag, and she helps keep his bed warm. It's very clear from the text, nothing hanky-panky was going on, but it's still a little wussy when he gets near the end of days.
Okay. David was at the time of the war and sent his troops out, and he's lounging around and he sees a woman taking
The story of Bathsheba, his army's out to war. Literally, the text says it is the time when kings go forth to war, and the very next sentence is, and David gets up late in the afternoon and is lounging around his palace. Okay, that doesn't sound like he's being the manly king that we talk about. And then, of course, he gets into the whole, problem with Bathsheba. He gets a woman pregnant when she's still married to someone else and tries to arrange for the murder of her husband. It's not like he says, hey, you know what, dude, I want her. This is not exactly the manly model here, is it? Anything else that's a counter-narrative? His son had more hair. Ah, yes. We can all appreciate that, but more importantly, that son, Absalom, what does he do? He rebels against his father, wins for a considerable amount of time, and actually sleeps with all of his father's concubines as a way of showing his superiority over his dad, and as a way of showing that he's not going to back down from the rebellion, because there's no taking back that. And David is running, and then yet when David comes back and he finds that his son has been killed, he cries like a little girl. Oh, Absalom, Absalom. And it's up to his general to tell him, get up off the ground, you wimp. You need to be brave and show the people that you are back in charge. And he played a harp. Nail in the coffin. No real man plays a harp. And he writes wishy love poetry to God. I mean, come on.
And his daughter was raped by her half-brother, and he didn't do anything about it.
Couldn't even protect his daughter from being attacked by her own stepbrother or half-brother. I mean, come on, right? Is this a man? Well, yes. Yes, it is a man. And see, that's the problem with the narrative that has become dominant within certain circles about what does it mean to be a man. Because this narrative is incredibly dangerous and problematic for everybody, but especially for men. Because you see, the narrative has begun to build up a model of what does it mean to be a man. And it divides sort of into different categories, but there's a lot of overlap. But basically, some people say to be a man is to be useful, the handyman model. Right? To be a man is to be somebody who can do things, get it done. They can fix the car. They can fix the computer. They know how to handle any problem around the house. They can kill any spider. That this is what it is to be a man. Right? They are useful to their family, useful to their community because of their skills. And then you have others that, and again, there's much overlap in the narrative that many of these people spin, that to be a man is to be strong. To be a man is to be strong, physically strong. You got to be pumping iron, you got to have six packs, you got to have, your guns and all of that, and you have to be able to defend your family. You have to be able to jump in and punch someone's lights out if they insult your wife, your daughter, your family. Not your son, of course. Your son has to grow up and punch people for himself. That you have to be strong and never show weakness. Never show that you are upset. Never show that you are hurt. Never show that you are in pain. You have to have strength, the facade, because you are the mountain upon which the rest of the family community are built upon. And if you show a crack, they'll all collapse. Or there is the model of the man as provider. That you are useful to your family because you bring home the bacon, or insert kosher substitute. That you are able to earn for the family. You are out there hunting the woolly mammoth, bringing back that cash in order to support your family, and they should not have to lift a finger because you can take care of them. They are safely nestled in the cave, and you are out there wrestling with the world and bringing back that parnasa, bringing back that prosperity to the family. And whatever your field might be, presumably not mammoth hunter, it is about the paycheck that you come home with that provides the standard of living, the comfortable lifestyle for your family that makes you a man. Which means, if you're unemployed, you're not a man. Which means if you can't bench press 300 pounds, you're not a man. Which means if you don't know how to change your own oil, you're not a man. Well, that's a bit of a problem, because the world only needs so many people to change oil. And the world only needs so many people who can bench press 300 pounds. And the world is always going to have people going through different periods of employment or success in different industries. And people may actually want to pursue careers and paths in their lives that are not about maximizing their income, or not maximizing their income vis-a-vis other people in their family who also want to have careers and who also want to be able to pursue professional goals. To be a man should not be about what use you are to someone else. Because fundamentally, the flaw of all of these images, and the flaws within the retelling of the stories of all of our ancestors in order to make them more masculine, is that to be a man is to be worth something to someone else. The problem with all of these stories, as much as they are trying to put a man at the pinnacle of their social structure, is that they are putting the man at the pinnacle of the social structure because he is the most useful object. But it is still an objectification of a human being. It is still saying you are worth something because of the utility you bring to your family or community. And if you have no utility, then you are worthless. And that is a horrible thing to say to any human being. To say that your identity is bound up in what you provide to others is a fundamental objectification of a human being, and it becomes toxic and painful, especially to young men, but also to middle-aged, and also to those who retire and leave behind, perhaps, the symbol of their manhood when they walk away from that office. Manhood is not defined by how you are of use to someone else, because we know that God already made you B'Tselem Elohim. God made you in the image of God. You didn't have to earn that. That was a gift from creation. All people are made in the image of God. All people are of infinite worth from the moment they are born. It is why we will move heaven and earth to save one life. We don't ask, what's his earning potential, before we try to rescue a person that has been hit in a traffic accident. We don't ask, well, I don't know, do you think he would be useful if there was ever a home invasion, before we try to resuscitate somebody that is dying? We don't ask whether or not they have been useful around the house before we call 911 to help them. Every life is infinitely valuable. And a man, no more and no less than a woman, should recognize their worth comes merely from their existence. It doesn't have to be earned. You don't need medals and badges. You don't need awards and certificates. You don't need diplomas and pay stubs to consider yourself worthwhile as a human being. You just need to be you. In Jeremiah 9, the passage that we read in the preparation for Tisha B'Av, Jeremiah warns. He says, if you are strong, do not glory in your strength. If you are wealthy, do not glory in your wealth. If you are clever, the most Jewish of virtues, we think, do not glory in your cleverness. If you're going to glorify yourself in something, do it in the knowledge of God. And what is God, says Jeremiah in the very next verse? God is chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. God is kindness, God is justice, and God is righteousness. That's it. And you'll notice that Jeremiah is not making a distinction between what a person should glorify themselves for, whether they be a man, a woman, or other. Glorify yourself in kindness, in justice, and righteousness. But understand that even if you struggle with those, even if you are not the paragon of virtue of all of those, you are still infinitely precious in the eyes of God. And you have nothing to prove. God created you so that you would exist. And if that was a good enough reason for you to be on this world for God, it is a good enough reason for you to look in the mirror, be happy that you have the life you have, and then choose to decide what you'll do with it, not because it will earn you more respect, more praise, more glory, but because you feel it is the calling of the right path to walk. Shabbat Shalom.